I had a client, we were working together and things were just not moving, even though we'd done all of the business things we needed to do. And I said to him, I really think we need to do some energetic work on your relationship with your father and the things that you learned growing up. And he said, what are you talking about? My relationship with my father is really great. And so I started asking him questions, and I said, do you remember when you told me your father said this and this and this happened? And he's like, oh my gosh. He wasn't even admitting to himself that he had these very strong beliefs that he wasn't good enough, smart enough, and that he was destined to fail.
Caution, you will begin to love your 9-to-5 with this show. Join us as we explore and discover your unique strengths and learn to apply them to your daily business activities with your host, Shmuel Septimus.
Welcome to this episode of the Love Your 9-to-5 show. Today's guest comes highly recommended by another previous guest who's been on the show multiple times. Vivica von Rosen said that I have to speak and I have to interview, and we must have a conversation with today's guest. Before we introduce her, we will introduce her right now. Deberah Bringelson is one of the most profit-producing business growth and empowerment experts in the world. She helps C-levels break through the fog of confusion, poor sales, and overwork to increase revenues and reclaim the time and energy and joy that their business has stolen from their life. Deberah has served with and worked with Fortune 100 and 500 CEOs, U.S. presidents, want to hear about that, members of Congress, and names that we know: Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, David Packard, President Reagan, Governor Schwarzenegger. There's really a lot to discuss. So first of all, Deberah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
So you're welcome. Vivica sent me a message. You sent a message. I knew we had to connect, and I already feel that this is going to be a very unique episode. So for our listeners who don't know you, and I've researched you just a little bit because we only met recently, can you give us just a short background? Because I don't want to spend the whole podcast discussing your background, but where do you come from personally, and kind of how did your business evolve to the direction where it is now? And we'll take that from here after you go.
Okay. So I started my professional life in politics, actually. And I have worked with a couple of presidents, and I worked in Congress for a while. And I got a call one day from someone saying, this business is going under, and we want you to come and see if you can do something and turn it around. And I have no idea why they called me, other than they knew of other things that I had done out of the business world. And I started with that company. They literally, their budget had declined from about $1 million to $56,000. And they were really thinking about, should we just turn the lights off and go home? And so I started working with them. And when we finished together, they'd gone from $56,000 annual revenue to more than $13 million. And from there, It just sort of snowballed. I just started working. I getting calls from companies all over the world to come in and help them. I started turning around. And I think the thing that's most important about me, that resonates with what you do with your show, is I'm all about freedom. I want everyone on the planet to have freedom. And, money doesn't necessarily make you happy, but it buys access, and it gives you the freedom to choose, healthy food and the kind of school that you send your children to and where you travel. So everything I do is about focusing on my clients or the people that I speak to, how to have more money, less stress, more fun, and more freedom in their lives.
Wow. Okay. So that's definitely a very full and complete answer. And I definitely can relate to the struggle which you're suggesting a solution for, because, you have the question, do you work to live or do you live to work? And, if you're living to work, then what's the whole purpose of it all?
I agree.
So by having that level of freedom that money could buy, I had a friend who mentioned recently that, getting a Lexus is not going to make me happy. So my response was, yes, your Lexus won't get you happy, but I'd rather have my problems in a Lexus than in a Toyota, maybe. But on a serious note, I definitely can relate to that on so many levels. Now, how did that actually happen? Your background is in politics, and we're not going to talk politics, at least not on air. We'll leave that on the side for a moment. But how did you make first of all, someone else obviously recognized that, and that whatever secret sauce you were using in politics, somehow you transferred that into business in a very explosive way. So first of all, how did it transition? And maybe let's go back a step and figure out what is the thing that you were doing well in politics that worked well in business?
Well, I think one of the things is solutions, and it's not just talking. A lot of people in politics just talk, right? They don't actually do anything. And so I think part of it was that there were actual solutions that were being implemented, like legislation getting passed to protect children and to prevent pollution in the oceans. And they saw how proactive I was. But one of the things that I have been doing for about 30 years is using quantum physics in creating those solutions, and it makes it a lot easier. So whereas, a lot of times people get really stuck with things, they can't move forward, they can't figure out what to do next, or they don't have the energy to do it. When you bring in the quantum world, when you connect to that quantum field and understand how to use it to make the connections, to open up the pathways, things happen kind of miraculously. I mean, one really quick example is I was asked to negotiate a deal with Richard Branson. And before, I didn't know this when I started, before I started, he was already a really hard no. He did not want to work with my clients. He was absolute about that. I only found that after everything was over. And using the quantum world, getting into that quantum field and finding the solutions. Like, I was driving past a building one day and I said, this is the building where the brand new Virgin America is going to be located. And 9 months later, that's where it was located. Wow. So being able to do that. And I think that, even though people didn't really know that that's what I was doing, and I certainly wasn't talking about it, 20, 30 years ago, because it wasn't something that people believed in. They didn't know what it was. They were seeing the results.
So hold on, before we go too far, can you just give a layman's definition of quantum physics and what that means for those who are not familiar with it?
Okay, so everything in the universe, and science has proven this, everything in the universe is energy. You the walls in your house, the rocks around your house, everything is energy. And you can shift the energy of what we would call the material world, because it's just movement. You can shift it and you can open things up. So like, for example, Richard Branson wasn't interested in working with my clients. By connecting to him in the quantum world, shifting the energy of his beliefs, we were able to open him up to the possibility of having a conversation. And so when you understand your body and your thoughts are all radiating out energy. And so imagine like little tentacles of spider webs. So if I'm thinking really negative things, and if I'm fearful about something like my health or something like that, what I'm doing is I'm sending energy out into the world, and I'm telling the universe, bring those experiences to me. And so when you see somebody who's constantly having, all kinds of problems in their lives, the first question I always ask is, what are they thinking and what are they feeling in their body? Like, are they feeling fearful? On the other hand, if you want to shift that and bring in positive things like more money or, more opportunities or the love of your life, you shift your thoughts to be about what you want, and at the same time you shift your energy. And that energy, and there are machines, actually we have machines that can detect this field that you're sending out to people, to the universe, saying, bring me whatever it is that I'm thinking and feeling.
Wow. So I'm familiar with the concept. of the basically what refer to, and don't be upset at me if this is a bad comparison, but the law of attraction, which seems okay, I got my answer ready. It's different, but go ahead. I'll let you talk.
Well, so I don't like the phrase law of attraction because it's become something that people have used as a marketing fad, and they don't have an understanding of it, and they're giving an incomplete explanation to people because they're using it as a tool to sell something. I don't have a problem with the law of attraction. I just have a problem with the fact that it's being used and not being helpful to people. The law of attraction is basically saying what I'm saying. There are 4 components of your energetic body that you have to get into alignment in order to get what you want. And so a lot of people said the law of attraction, just, think about what you want and it'll magically appear. And, there are people like, oh, I've been thinking about a Lamborghini all day. There's not one in my driveway.
Right.
The reason for that is there are 4 components. There's your thoughts, which you're thinking about the Lamborghini. There are the feelings that are being radiated out and the emotions that are being radiated. So emotions are related to your thoughts. Like, for example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off and you think that jerk just cut me off. And then your mind starts looping emotionally. That jerk cut me off. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. So those 2 things go in combination. Then there are your core beliefs. And this is really important. What do you believe at your core? If you grew up, as a lot of people around the world have, and in this country have, grown up with the belief that you don't deserve, or you have to work really hard, nose to the grindstone, or money's the root of all evil. If your core belief doesn't allow you to have that Lamborghini or thinks that you don't deserve it, you're never going to get it. And what happens is your feelings are attached to your beliefs. Those are the feelings that are going on in your body. So let's say I say to you, well, you can have a Lamborghini if you really want one, and you get that clutch in your stomach like, no, I can't. That is the emotion. That's the fire that fuels the biggest power of what you create. So when people talk about the law of attraction and your thoughts create, they absolutely do. But you can't ignore the feelings and emotions and core beliefs that go with all of that. That make sense?
Yeah, I'm absorbing this because I've heard the law of attraction being presented in many different ways. My thoughts are not about a Lamborghini. That's not on my wish list right now. Unless, I don't know if they make them with car seats. So, I don't know if that's going to work out. But for other things, and yeah, it certainly cannot be and isn't as simple as you think about it. You really, really think about it. You hang up a postcard that you look at every day and you think about it. If it stops that thinking. So what you're saying now makes a lot more sense. I'm just processing this as I'm speaking, but it seems like that your thoughts are creating an emotion, like you said, with the guy who cut you off. So you think that the guy's an idiot. That thought is looping, creating that emotion of anger, and you begin really feeling whatever that feeling is, and that feeling has to help. And I'm not sure if that affects your core beliefs, or if your core beliefs have to come from a different way somehow to change that. But go ahead. Well, which way is it?
Well, so let's say somebody is working a 9-to-5 job and they say, I want more money, so I'm going to leave my 9-to-5 job and I'm going to start a business. All right, excellent. And they say to themselves, I'm really good at this skill, whatever that skill is. I'm great at that, and I'm really smart. But somehow, so that's all in their head, and that's creating the emotions in their head. But let's say they grew up in a family where they were told, you'll never amount to much, or you're really, your brother's the smart one, or your sister's the one who's going to be the most successful in life, or at some level, they feel like, and just about everyone I work with has some experience of this, I'm not enough. That's a core belief. So they start their business, they've got their head going, they know they're really good at this one skill, but in their core, in their body, they're like, I don't know. I don't know if I really believe it. And they may not be admitting it to themselves. I mean, I'll tell you an example. I had a client
Okay.
who we were working together and things were just not moving, even though we'd done all of the business things we needed to do. And I said to him, I really think we need to do some energetic work on your relationship with your father and the things that you learned growing up. And he said, what are you talking about? My relationship with my father is really great. And so I started asking him questions, and I said, do you remember when you told me your father said this and this, and then this happened? And he's like, oh my gosh. He wasn't even admitting to himself that he had these very strong beliefs that he wasn't good enough, smart enough, and that he was destined to fail because of
So
what he,
limiting beliefs.
yeah, but they were in his core, they were in his body. And his body was running the show because that was that energy. So remember I said we've got machines that can feel your energy. We can sense your energy. So let's say you're going into a big negotiation or a big sales meeting to sell something, and you're smiling and you're saying all the right words about how great your product is. But in your core, your body is saying, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not, what happens is the person that you're negotiating with or selling to, they may not know what they're feeling, but they know they're feeling something, or they can feel a disconnect, and they don't trust you. They don't know why, but they don't trust you. And that can tank your business. So you have to clear that out and shift your energy to a different level so that you're all in alignment. When you get those 4 things in alignment, your thoughts, emotions, feelings, and core beliefs, that's called the point of power. And that's where everything starts to open up.
Wow. So you really just cleared up the mystery for the critics who have been listening until now. And I'm not going to say if I was part of that group or not. We're saying, what does all this stuff have to do with real hardcore business results? I could have all the touchy-feely stuff at home, and in the car I could sing to myself, and I could do opera, and I could tell myself that you really are good, and I could do whatever I want. But at the end of the day, I'm in a business meeting. I have a product. I have a service. I know it well, and I'm presenting it well, and I know that I deserve to get compensated at a certain level, and yet for some reason, when I come across, there's some sort of disconnect. So you're saying it's a very, very practical thing that what you could, if you're first of all, if you're not thinking that I'm going to make this money, or even if you want to be a little bit less crass for the people who think money is a dirty word, which it's not. But even if someone wants to say, I'm going to be, let's call it success, and they want to, and they create that emotion, they create that feeling, but their core beliefs, they heard that either success doesn't mean being financially successful. Maybe for them, success may have been defined as something else, and now they want to earn their own success in business. And they may say, 1 second, I'm not supposed to be successful here. Forget about if I can or if I can't. I was told that the definition of success is something else.
Right.
Or I was told not like that, which, by the way, as a parent, you terrify me, because that means that obviously I'm aware of the relationship I have with my children, but they always compare each other. Took this one out and you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And anything that they're all unique, completely unique. They're, at least by my children, they're so distinguishable, for good or for bad, but not bad, but challenged and less challenged. But the message from a parenting perspective is that responsibility is huge. But at the same time, if you have that core belief that you were given these children because you have the abilities inside of you to connect to them in the right way, to build them up, and do just the opposite and build the correct principles, assuming that you have a principle guided life, then, or whatever, you have a clear set of principles that you're guiding them with and that you're building them up, then that could make them that much more successful. But zooming out of parenting for a moment, getting back to business. So if this is touchy-feely stuff, how's that going to make me actually close more sales? How am I going to sell that whatever, that big contract? Why are they going to relate to me and connect to me? I think we could all relate to this on some level, that I'm speaking for myself, but I've worked with a lot of people, And I think there are certain people that come across when you meet them the first time, you know that they're spilling their gut, and there's nothing in between what they're saying and doing and who they are as who their core person is. And there's some people, like people like to make fun of stewardesses on flights or whoever it is. They put that fake smile. The plane is crashing with a smile on their face, and please hold your head on the whatever. And you know that those are extremes, but you know that it's fake. So again, I'm processing this, and if I misinterpreted, you're going to correct me in a second. But when you come across, and I know sometimes I've done that, where I went to big marketing meetings, where I was just low down on the rankings. So we went to meet a hospital, and everyone's saying their pre-scripted lines and making sure to comment on all the different things in the room and all the other garbage, which drives me crazy. And then there were times I come in there and just said like one thing that was just completely opposite of the whole uh, inauthentic feeling in the room, but immediately connected to people. And like months later, people came back, oh, that was your one-liner, and people, because it's real and it's genuine, and people are starving for that. Is that, am I getting it?
I think you're absolutely right that people are starving for real and authentic. And I think it's related, but I also think it's different. Being real and authentic, I think there's a desire to have that. At the same time, though, being real and authentic and not having internal barriers blocking you. Here's a real practical example. Anyone who knows me has probably heard the story that I've told about the realtor who sold homes, who went for 12 months with $0 revenue. She made nothing in a 12-month period. We started working together, and we started putting in all of the strategic business plans and strategies that we needed to do. And we're 8 months in, and she still hasn't made any money. And I said to her, look, I think there's something that you're doing that's blocking this energetically. So we did some work around her core beliefs and her energy. And what we discovered is she had grown up in a very wealthy family. And she felt like in her core, she didn't deserve to have wealth because she'd never done anything to earn it. So she needed to clear that out. We did some work around it within 8 days. Now keep in mind, at this point, she's gone 20 months with zero revenue. Within 8 days, she made $298 million.
What?
Within 8 days, we cleared out that belief that she didn't deserve wealth because she grew up in a wealthy family. She made $298 million. And at the end of the 12-month period that we were working together, she made $602 million selling houses. Wow.
This is residential real estate?
Yes.
And you're saying that this is what she made in her commissions on the sales?
Well, she was the owner of the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically, oh wow. So she was the owner of the company. She had agents working for her.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she was selling herself.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in 12 months, she made $0. 12 months later, she made $602 million.
Wow.
So that's a practical application.
Wow. So, wow. that's obviously those numbers are hard to even wrap my head around, those numbers, especially going from, there's no shortage of real estate agents who, are licensed and certified and not making any sales. I know a few of them myself. And I wonder if they have certain core beliefs that are holding them back. A lot of them are learning the market. They have all sorts of terms for why they're not being successful. But I mean, this is super drastic. I mean, that means if you take someone who never sold a house before in his life or her life, and who has never done anything in business, and if they can really get into their core beliefs and understand that, yes, they can be successful professionally. They have the ability, and there's nothing stopping them. They don't deserve any more or less than anybody else. If that can somehow permeate in that core belief, and they can connect to it and either remove, cover over, white out, do whatever you got to do to any other limiting beliefs. I won't necessarily call them negative, but they're just beliefs that are saying that you cannot do this. Then the success, then the success could be to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned before people who they think money is dirty or whatever. If that's truly a belief that they have, now there are people who will say that because they think they should and they don't necessarily believe it. But if that's truly a belief they have, they will not make money. They won't have it. Your energy system will not allow you to have something that you truly believe is evil or dirty, because you don't want to be that.
That's an assumption. But most people naturally, we don't want to be evil. We don't want it to be dirty, right? And people, I once heard it defined, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this, that money doesn't make a person good, doesn't make a person evil. Money just makes a person more of what they already were.
Well, and I would take it even a step further. Money is neutral. I mean, the air you breathe is neutral. Money is equally neutral. It just depends on what you do with it.
Right. So it's a power.
Right.
That could be used for anything. Is electricity bad?
No.
Well, it could be used to kill someone in an electric chair. Could also be used to keep a computer going so we can have this conversation. Right. It's neither good nor bad. It's energy, which is exactly how we started this conversation. Now, I can't not bring up some of the things that I mentioned in your introduction, even just for anecdotal purposes. Would you mind sharing maybe what you've done with any of the names that we mentioned in the beginning? Maybe Richard Branson or Tony Robbins or President Reagan. Is there any particular one that jumps out the most if you have to pick one of them?
So Tony Robbins has sent me VIP clients to work with. So that's been my relationship with him. President Reagan, I worked with him after he was president to work on the California open primary. So I worked with him on that back in the 90s. And then Richard Branson, I was asked by Gavin Newsom, who's the, is he soon to be governor of California? I was asked by him when Richard Branson was starting his Virgin America Airlines. I was asked if I would lead the effort to have him locate his headquarters in San Francisco. And as I said, at the time, I didn't know it, but he had decided that he would not locate in California for a variety of reasons. And so I said, yes, I will do this, not knowing what I was getting myself into. And 9 months later, after running this campaign, I had no financial resources. They gave me no money. I had just an assistant, so I didn't have any staff. Everybody who worked on my team was volunteer. I had no money to give him, and all of the competition, they were giving him hundreds of millions of dollars in tax cuts and all of that. I had none of that. And 9 months later, when we closed the deal and he said, yes, I will move my headquarters to California, I learned, because I'd become friendly with his team, that he was only using California as leverage to get better deals from anyone else. He was not ever intending of going there. And so the point of that is when you combine my formula is called the power of three. When you combine all three elements of that, the business strategies, the success strategies, and the quantum physics together, there's really nothing you can't do.
Wow. It's humbling to hear you assume that others can easily take this concept and replicate it. Obviously, if it was so simple, we would all do it. So what is a practical way for us to get started actually living the way that you just described?
Okay, so I do believe that everybody can do this. And I teach online, it's a home study class, it's online. And I've got CEOs from small companies to multi-million-dollar companies who are, one of them, his name's John. He 10x'd his leads, his sales, and his revenue in 6 months. 10x. I've got another client who's a solopreneur. He is achieving up to 95% growth, revenue growth, month over month. So it's every month he's achieving that. Nadia, who went from 0 to $602 million. So I believe, actually, I don't believe, I know that everyone has the ability to do this. Here's a way to get started. First, Go to 7blueprint.com. I have a free gift for everyone who's listening. It's two things. One, it's a blueprint, and the timing is perfect because before it was just a couple page blueprint. Last week I updated it so that you still get the blueprint that you can look at, but now there's 30 pages of backup information. So if you want that, it's there. If you're not somebody who likes to read, that's fine too. You still get the blueprint. And then the other thing is I bundled it with my clients, like the realtor. I do these guided processes where I guide them out into the quantum field. I have recorded a guided process to help everyone get themselves out into the quantum field. Now, this is not something where you do it one time and that's it. This is a lifestyle. This is how I lead my life, and this is how I teach my students in my class to lead their life. So if you go to 7blueprint.com, 7 BLUEPRINT.com, you can get both of those for free as my gift to your listeners.
Awesome. I'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes, and I'll definitely have a look at those downloads to see how I can incorporate that, and hope that some of our listeners will as well. Especially if someone right now is, let's say, in a 9-to-5 job, and a lot of times, some people love it. Some people love the fact that I don't have to worry about what this business does, where it's going, what the success will be. As long as I keep on, moving things along the conveyor belt, then I'm getting my paycheck.
Yeah.
And I guess for some, I don't know, for some people, maybe depending on where they are in their careers, maybe that's okay. I don't even care the amount of money that you're getting paid. That concept of being a cog or a pawn in someone else's game, a cog in someone else's wheel, whatever, that's just so repulsive to me.
Right.
Because I feel like we're suppressing our natural ability of self-expression. We're not all the same. We don't all manage the same. And yes, it's true, there are abilities of self-expression. And certain people, they'll say, I'm not a risk taker, I'm too conservative, I don't want to branch out. What if? Right now, as I mentioned before the show, I'm starting my own business, and I have my own family responsibilities, and I've been asking a lot of what ifs. But I came to the point where what if I don't do this? I can't afford not to do this.
Right.
I know my parents were like, you better not say goodbye to your job. And a million other people said that. And thank God, it looks like it's going to work out. The transition will be healthy. But I'm at a point where I don't even care, because I have to have that. I just can't, you can't do that. So I guess for some people accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Part of the Love Your 9-to-5 show goes back to maybe a belief which maybe not everybody shares, which we mentioned briefly either before the show or in the beginning of the show, is why we're working to begin with. If we understand that it's not an end, and if we understand that we're working for a purpose and we're not just doing it to create a paycheck, then we're not looking for a quick way to earn enough money to retire. We're not looking for a way to simply pay our bills and then finally relax. Just tell you something. You don't know this about my background. I'll just share with you now. My listeners have heard this once or twice. I haven't had any job ever until I was 30. That means I was studying in what's called kollel. So I was basically doing religious studies almost the entire day. In the evenings, I was teaching a little bit. But I entered the business world as an adult with several children. I don't remember the number, what it was at the time, but with several children. And that's how I entered the business world. Now, I already had developed a system for managing my time, for managing my priorities outside of the business world. When I came there for the very first time, I explained to my mentor at that point that I expect to be as productive in the business world as I was in my religious studies. And I explained to him that we would actually sit across the table from a study partner. We would sit 3-4 hour sessions in a row. We were maybe we weren't always perfect, but the goal was not to speak anything that wasn't directly related to the subject at hand. 100% productive. And that's what we're going to do. And we accomplished tremendous things by doing that. But the immediate vibe that I got from almost everybody, which was foreign to me, was that, the depressing Mondays, and then as the weekend comes closer, TGIF, and I learned a lot of new things I didn't know. And then, we're living for the weekends. And I don't know, that it just so rubbed me the wrong way. That if you don't love what you're doing the entire time, then that's a very depressing way to spend your limited time on this wonderful planet.
Yep.
So applying some of the things that you've mentioned, and obviously this is the tip of the iceberg. It should be a way for us to be able to begin seeing things in a different way. Now, I know I don't want to take up too much of your time. Is there a final thought that you could give just about the Power of Three formula? Maybe if you could even share that with our listeners, of just so that they could understand it really well, and perhaps and a practical way for them to begin understanding it after they download the download.
Okay, so if you want a more in-depth explanation of the Power of Three formula and how it works, you should go to deberahbringelson.com/growth. That's
Okay.
DeberahBringelson.com/growth.
Mm-hmm.
And that will give you an explanation of what, all these people that I've talked about who've had this massive success, what they've actually done.
Wow.
So it's right there. But the Power of Three formula combines three things. The first is proven business strategies, but I do it with a little bit of a twist. Speaking to your ideal buyers, figuring out who your ideal buyers are first, because there's a whole world of buyers, but you only want the ones who are right for you. The ones who are easy to work with, who listen to you, who, pay and pay well. How to actually connect with them and do it in an easy way that makes them want to talk to you. You'll want to look for the story that I talk about where the home developer, we didn't sell those $602 million of houses by talking about granite and lighting and fixtures. We talked about diabetes, heart disease, and teen drug use to sell houses. Wow. So that's a little bit of a different twist. That's part of the first part of the Power of Three formula. The second part are the success tools that you need, how to lead yourself if you hire someone, how to lead them, how to build a team, how to put a presentation together, how to negotiate a deal. Like when I was negotiating with Richard Branson, one of the most powerful billionaires in the world, how to negotiate at that level. This class that I'm talking about, one of my students was pre-revenue startup. He hadn't made any money. By the end of the 5-week class, he had negotiated a $67 million deal by learning these tools. And then the third element of the Power of Three that makes it easier and more joyful is the quantum physics piece. How to open that up, how to open up the energy so that you're bringing into your life, not just your business, but your life, what you want. So many CEOs are under more pressure than ever. They're under so much stress. What's the point if you're not sleeping at night and your spouse is ready to divorce you? And believe me, when I start working with people, that's one of the first stories that I hear, is how their marriage is on the rocks because the business is taking so much time, or because their children are experiencing problems because they're not spending enough time with them. So the whole formula comes together to grow the business, but it's holistic because we focus on the life too. And you can find at DeberahBringelson.com/growth that I mentioned, you can find out more about all of the components of that.
Awesome. All right. As I didn't give you a warning about this, so you can decline if you'd like. But usually I like to ask all of our guests on the show if there's any one particular book that has had a significant impact on them, and that they would recommend something that has to do with maybe some of the content of what we've discussed. Is there anything at all that comes to mind?
I love the work of Joe Dispenza. If somebody's experiencing health issues, now what he talks about in this book that I'm going to recommend is about health, but you can extrapolate it and use it for other parts of your life. But I love his book, You Are the Placebo. He also has a great book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, where he talks about how your body starts to run your life, those core beliefs. And he does it from a scientific perspective. If there's somebody who's like, well, I really want to understand the science behind all this, they're readable. You can pay attention to the science or not, but it's there if you want it. So I really love any of Joe Dispenza's work.
Awesome. All right, we'll link up to those in the show notes. Deborah, it's been really, really a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your experiences and some of your knowledge. I will definitely put a link to the website where there's so much more that we were not able to get to in this episode. And we also appreciate your generous gift of the downloads that you mentioned earlier. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.